Hey guys, Astrocass here. I'm just going to quickly share my screen and then we can jump into it. Hopefully you can see what's on here now. I put up a little chart because I wanted to have a bit of a chat about a transit that I had. As you can see, it was in 2021, but I haven't seen like a lot of people talk about big major life transits from the personal and outer planets. So I thought I'd jump on here and talk about my experience. So it's a bit of a story time with Pluto transiting my 10th house Capricorn, squaring my natal moon in Aries in my first house. So if you're interested in astrology and love this story, then stick around because that's what we're going to chat about. Okay, so first of all, I just want to thank you guys for being here and watching this video. I really appreciate that energy exchange. And I would really appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe. That'll help me grow my channel and it really shows me what you're enjoying so I can put out some more content. Right now, I'm just in my garage because I'm planning on doing a workout before I go to bed because I have a super busy weekend. I've got a hen's day weekend, so I won't get much time over the weekend to like train and do that kind of stuff. But I really wanted to film this video and put some more content on my page for you guys. So yes, please subscribe. I would really appreciate that. It doesn't really cost anything. You just subscribe. That'll give me, more followers. It'll help me build my channel to reach a bigger audience, and it would mean the world to me. So if you could do that, I would really appreciate it. But let's talk about my experience. So I actually started feeling this energy probably more in 2019, towards the end of 2019. Definitely felt it a lot through 2020, but the exact conjunction was roughly around January 2021. Now, keep in mind there is retrogrades and we're kind of going by degree, but my moon is at about 25 degrees in Aries. So technically the exact conjunction, the exact square, the square aspect happened in January 2021. So a square is like a tension, it's conflict and challenge between the two planets. So what I'm talking about here is Pluto, which is transiting Capricorn and sending what is known as an aspect called a square to my natal moon. Now, in astrology, the aspect of a square usually shows either internal or external conflicts, tension, challenges. It's a quite a hard aspect. It's one of the worst aspects as per se. It gets a pretty bad rap, but it is good because it also helps you grow and transform. So we do need those squares. But they can be quite uncomfortable and they do kind of force you to make some kind of movements and pivots and change. Now, when we're talking about Pluto, Pluto is the planet that usually rules Scorpio. And it's linked to like Hades, the god of the underworld. It's all about transformation. So think about the phoenix rising from the ashes. It can represent challenge, crisis. It can represent things that are toxic, things that need to be taken out of our lives. It can represent power and control, all of those Scorpio eighth house kind of themes and topics, right? So it's the planet of power, control, transformation, truth. So it is very powerful. And in my case, what happened is, first of all, you've got to know that I'm an Aries rising. So Pluto rules my eighth house. Now, the eighth house and Scorpio being there, they link to things to do with your reproductive system, birth, and DEATH, and endings, trauma and psychology, all of those sorts of things. And so Pluto, being my eighth house ruler, rules over those things and it brings those things into the 10th house. So it was bringing that area of my life to a very public point in my chart. The MC, it was bringing it into my 10th house and it was squaring my moon. And it was doing this very publicly because the 10th house was linked here. Now, for me, this was very, very challenging. And the 10th house usually represents career, reputation, legacy, and how the public see you. It's kind of like it's the most public part of your chart. Now, when we're talking about the moon represents things to do with the mother. So our literal mother, us being a mother, or mother female figures in our lives. It also represents our security, so how we feel safe and secure. It's our needs, it's our emotional needs, it's our emotions. It represents all of those things, and it usually rules Cancer. And in my chart, because I'm an Aries rising, Cancer is the fourth house. Now, the fourth house links to home and family. So, can you see that there's a theme of reproduction, home and family, the mother, fertility, the moon being fertility, and ovaries, and then like the 10th house of like legacy and your reputation. That's the kind of things that are playing out for me. Sorry, I was going to move my legs here. So that was the kind of thing that was playing out for me with this transit. Now, a bit of a backstory to what was actually happening to fill you in a little bit on what was going on in my life. Not only was I having this Pluto square my moon aspect, I'd also just finished my Saturn return. So my Saturn return was roughly at the same time. So 2019-ish, 2020-ish. And it coincided with me going through IVF and falling pregnant and having all these huge monumental life changes. Now, I did speak a little bit about this in my video that was my Saturn return experience. So I'll definitely let you know to go watch that one to hear my experience with my own personal Saturn return, because a lot of the events and themes kind of flow onto this because they were happening simultaneously. So it was a little bit hard to tell what was actually like the Pluto square my moon and what was like the Saturn return energy. I think it was a mixture of both playing out, but essentially in roughly, I would say like late 2017 or early 2018, I decided to kind of go off the pill. I noticed my weight was changing, even though I was going to the gym a lot and I was eating really healthy. But I just noticed that I was starting to put on a bit of weight. And I thought maybe if I go off the pill, like that might help. I'd also recently purchased my first house with my partner. We've been together for a few years at this point. And I'd also got a job in 2017 that was very stable. It was a full-time job. And then in 2018, I got like a promotion in that job and went to a new role. So in 2017, 2018, I had some big changes and I was like very secure in my relationship, my house, my finances in 2018. And so I kind of was like, yeah, I'll just go off the pill because I wasn't too sure it was messing with my hormones. I obviously spoke to my partner, who's now my husband, about this and like just like the health complications. And we also obviously knew that pregnancy could be a result of not being on the pill. So we kind of spoke about that, but we were both kind of okay that if it happened, it happened. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like we weren't kind of pushing for it, but that obviously was something that we did discuss along with that as well. But there was just something, I don't know, that just kind of made me not really want to be on the pill. And I was hearing like a lot of really bad stories about women being on them for so long. And from my experience, I'd been on the pill since I was about 14, consistently. I only had maybe a short 3-month period where I was off it when I had some major surgery in 2016, in December 2016. Other than that, I'd been on it constantly, like nonstop, no break. So, and no changes to like the level as well. So, that's a big red flag. Like, I think doctors should be really monitoring this stuff a lot more and speaking to us about the impacts that could have long term on your fertility, like being on the pill for that long and not having a break and what that could do to your body. But yeah, that was my thought pattern for kind of going off the pill. And I think it was in 2018. I don't remember the exact day or month or anything like that. It's just, I did that and then I was off it for about 12 to 13 months, which took me to 2019, around June-ish, June, July-ish. I think it was July in 2018, sorry, 2019. And yeah, so fast forward it and yeah, I wasn't getting my period at all. I hadn't since I'd come off the pill. when I was on the pill, getting it regularly every month. And so I thought, this is a bit odd. I did a bit of research though, and everyone said, oh, because you've been on it for so long, sometimes it can take 12 months for that to regulate and things to get back into a natural cycle. So I was just praying that that was like the issue. And so I gave it that 12 to 13 months to try and see. Got to that 13-month period, still nothing. I had done some like little mini ovulation tests, like the little kits that you can buy. And I think once or twice there was like the smiley face saying that you were ovulating. So I kind of knew that there was something happening there. Um, and then, yeah, I booked in. I went and seen my doctor in July 2019, explained everything that was happening, about the pill and my periods and all those sorts of things. And yeah, we decided to go for a massive blood test and test for everything and have a really good look at my hormone levels and all those sorts of things. Um, and it took a little bit of time, but then I got back some results that were very upsetting and kind of changed my life a lot, to put it lightly. They showed that I was going through premenopause and that essentially my hormones were extremely low, pretty much no eggs left. And he sent me for an ultrasound just to find out exactly what was going on with my eggs and my ovaries. Um, so I went and got that done a little bit after I had my blood test done. Obviously, I was very nervous and very scared, and that's at Pluto energy, right? So reproduction issues, like this was all happening in 2019 and 2020. So this was like the build up for like this Pluto moon square. Um, Essentially, I had the ultrasound done. We were there for ages. She kind of told me that I was a problem child. Couldn't find my ovaries for quite a while. Allegedly, they were high, and that usually happens with women who are menopausal. Their ovaries kind of come up higher. And in the scan, she told me she could only find one ovary. So I don't know if that ended up changing. I've had multiple scans since then, but no one's ever mentioned anything or told me anything. But I just assumed that I only have one ovary. Um, so there was that. And at the time when I had the scan, they could see a follicle, but there was only like one follicle. And again, like they were, saying that there was no other follicles. They couldn't see any other, eggs, that kind of thing. So that'll come back to my doctor that was, still confirming menopause at this stage for me. So that was a lot to take in because I had no children at this stage and, quite young person in a relationship. Obviously, presumably, our plan was in the future to have children. So that was a big kind of shock. It was very psychologically testing and very traumatic. It was a crisis point, and that's at Pluto energy, right? And Pluto was building up at this stage. So the exact square hadn't happened, but Pluto is such a slow moving planet that it stays at those degrees for so long. So it was already within like a 3-degree orb of being in like an exact square to my moon at this stage. So it was coming into that square. So it was applying to that square. It was definitely that energy was already there while all this was happening. Plus the Saturn return was happening as well for me. So we get all that done. Everything's looking like menopause at this stage, premenopause. So I then get referred on to a gynecologist, again, reproductive doctor. And yeah, for a while, we weren't really sure exactly what was going on. We tried a round of the IVF medication that stimulates your eggs that you kind of usually take before you do an egg collection. So I took like all of the hormone injections for that 2-week or 3-week period. Took the stim shot, everything that you normally would with the whole process for egg collection for IVF. In hopes to kind of stimulate my ovaries and the follicles and get some eggs there. That didn't work. There was nothing that showed up, allegedly, no eggs, no embryos, no nothing. So after that was definitely a confirmation that apparently no eggs, nothing left for me. And then, yeah, after some blood tests come back, it showed that I had a chromosomal disorder called Turner syndrome, which I didn't know about. It had been missed by all my doctors my whole life. There was definitely signs with my short stature. I'm quite short, and just a few other things from when I was born that would have been a bit of an indicator of there being that medical condition there. And so, yeah, that was a huge shock. And then we had to discuss the process moving forward. So, um, like IVF and the whole process involved. And, we spoke about adoption and fostering and all sorts of different things. We're trying to find the right pathway for us to start our own family. And I guess, yeah, me and my now husband had never really spoken too much about like specifically being ready for kids, but we did have that conversation that if it happened, it happened. So I guess when this happened, it kind of pushed us forward in that whole conversation and starting our family a lot earlier than, ordinarily probably what we would have anticipated, because I guess when stuff like this happens, it kind of shakes you into urgency and like, we're going to do something now. So that was kind of the backstory. And then I took all of 2020 because I got diagnosed with Turner syndrome like the 21st of January, I think it was 2020. So I took pretty much most of that whole year to process all of that information because psychologically it really took a toll on me. And it was really funny because at the same time all of that was happening, I kind of fell back into tarot cards and angel cards and oracle cards and candles and magic and a lot of mindfulness techniques and apps. So I was really, because I'm um, a trained counselor, like I've studied psychology. I've done a Bachelor of Arts majoring in psychology with a double minor in behavioral studies and sociology. So very familiar with psychology, mindfulness-based techniques. But I really, because I was in a pretty dark space, I really fell into using those techniques for me and trying to find, meditation and connect myself in that way. And then, yeah, we kind of had all of that going on at the same time. I don't know how this all worked out, but we actually sold our house. So we bought our first house in April 2017, and I believe we moved in there around May or June 2017. And then I started my new job. It was a really great full-time job that was stable. Started that around September 2017. So 2017 was a big year for me. Bought a house, new job, all of that sort of thing. And then 2019. Now, what kind of led to this decision? I have to give you guys a bit of a backstory with this as well. This is another bit of a story, but it all ties in, trust me. So just bear with me. So about halfway through 2019, my house almost got broken into. There was an intruder outside our bedroom window, and our bed was right beside the window. Like there's a little bit of a walkway, but not much space. I heard some scratching, and I was like half asleep. It was about 10 o'clock at night. My house was on a main road, like a really busy street. I thought it was the neighbor's tree branch that was like had fallen and was scratching our window. So like I've opened it and peeked out there, and there was someone trying to pry open the window in like a black hoodie. They had like a screwdriver. Obviously, like I don't know why my reaction was to bang on the window and try and scare them away, and it worked. They did. But they'd already hacked at our front door trying to get in, and then they were obviously trying windows to try and break in. So it was quite scary for me. And I guess the thing that was going through my head is that, I just was like, oh my God, like if he had got through that window, he probably would have fell on the bed because it's so close, and then he would have like stabbed me with his um, uh, screwdriver. And so like that kind of took a big toll on my mental health and was like, made me feel not safe and uncomfortable at home and whatnot. So that led to our decision, along with a few other things, that we kind of wanted to move. And so we kind of had all these medical tests going on in the middle of June, as well as our house getting broken into. So we kind of decided to move house, but I'm also going through all these big medical procedures. And keeping in mind, the eighth house also links to crimes and criminals. So crimes against you as well. Like your house getting broken into, burglary, that kind of stuff. And it's a very traumatic house as well. So it shows like trauma, which is what I was going through, psychological trauma after that. So yeah, we had all of that going on at once. But before we actually knew about the pandemic and everything that happened at the end of 2019, we weren't really aware. Like it was something that I wasn't really aware about. It wasn't getting talked about that much publicly at the end of 2019. It wasn't really till 2020 and early 2020 that we started to hear a lot about the pandemic and like lockdowns and the seriousness of it all. Sorry, my neighbour's dog is barking. And so, we put our house on the market the 13th of December 2019. Yep. And then the pandemic happened and our house was not selling because everybody was in limbo because, yeah, they weren't sure what was going to happen financially and what was going to happen, how long people would be locked down and people were, passing and this was, people just didn't know. So everything was kind of like on hold and like even people's jobs and stuff like working from home, a lot of people lost their jobs during this time, especially the early stages of that whole situation. Eventually we did sell the house. I believe it was in March or April in 2020 for a lot less than we were hoping to. It was still, we still got a profit. But considering the conversations that we had originally, so we paid $395,000 for our house when we bought it in 2017. And then when we sold it in 2020, I think we ended up selling it for like 465 or 470. Obviously, the real estate took about 15,000 for their cut. So we still did end up with a little bit of a profit. I think it was, maybe like 50 grand or around about ish that 50, 60 grand, which don't get me wrong, that's still decent. That's still a good amount. But when we originally spoke to the real estate, they were talking that the house was going to sell for like, 500 to 550. So we were thinking like there'd be an extra $50,000, $60,000 to what we got. So there, that was a bit of a shock as well. And our plan was to build. So we'd already gone through the process with the bank about getting pre-approval and stuff like that because we wanted to buy a block of land, build our own house. And that was like what we wanted to do. And so we did. So once our other house sold, we started building our house that we live in now. So we started building that in April. And that was April 2020. And yeah, so we focused a lot on building the house, and I was just mentally processing everything with the IVF stuff and just thinking about, what we wanted to do and the steps we wanted to take to start our family. My job was going really good. I was doing really well there. So I ended up staying in the job that I was in until after I gave birth to my son. And the only reason I kind of stopped working there was because of the vaccine. And that being mandated at my job while I was pregnant. And I had a medical exemption and then I went on maternity leave. But once my maternity leave started, I also found out that, my job was made redundant. So I got paid my maternity leave plus redundancy. And that kind of meant that, I did have a little bit of a lump sum money there, but technically like no job. And we just built a house and had a baby, our first baby. So it was like, a lot going on with that whole like 2021 saga with this Pluto square my moon. And we kind of knew from January 2021 that pretty much that, we weren't going to get a new contract with the company. Like our company wasn't going to get a new contract. I worked for a non-profit organization linked in with the government at the time. So I did kind of know that was potentially coming. And I had been working from home essentially since, the pandemic stuff and the lockdowns. Obviously there was a lot of flexibility with work. I think October, I believe it was, I think it was October 2021. I permanently started kind of working from home. And then, yeah, that kind of led to the redundancy and everything else. But I did go through the IVF process. So I'm going to step back and tell you the actual middle part of the story because we've kind of gone a little bit ahead, but all of it's kind of like relevant. It all ties in. So yeah, 2020, I took off. We were focused on building the new house, and then I moved into the new house like 13th of December 2020. And so in December, once the house was almost built, we've made a decision we're going to go through the IVF route and going to go down that pathway and embark on a really long journey. I think anyone that's gone through IVF kind of knows what I'm talking about. It's mentally, physically taxing. It's a really rough road, definitely rewarding and worth it, but it's a long process. And so we reached out, I think, yeah, in December, I reached out and kind of started the ball rolling, trying to find an IVF doctor, and reached out to the local clinic and started the ball rolling. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time. So we didn't actually get our first appointments and start things happening until March or April-ish. And there's a lot involved, especially with my situation, my medical condition and high-risk pregnancy and everything. We eventually got to a point where we started the medications in, I believe it was early June. I think it was June. And then we did the egg collection. The first egg collection didn't work. We had a lot of trouble. Our clinic messed up with the first lot of scans, and they took the eggs too early, and I think they ended up collecting 5 follicles or eggs, embryos, whatever you want to call them. And then, yeah, they were immature, they weren't mature, couldn't use any of them, and there was only 5. So we lost over like $5,000 to $8,000. I can't remember the exact amount. I know that they took off a little bit of the bill because they weren't doing the actual embryo transfer. But obviously, because we've gone through all the other stages of like the semen collection and all their helps and supports and everything else in the surgery, like even though it was kind of their stuff up, they didn't scan properly. The eggs, weren't ready. They shouldn't have taken them. They should not have booked in the surgery. We still got lumps with that whole cost, which was really expensive. I think it ended up being about $5,500 that was just down the drain, which was devastating. So then pretty much as soon as we could, we tried again. We did another round of egg collection. I think that was the end of June, maybe early July. And then we ended up with a lot, which was really great. We upped the dosage of medications and everything. But we ended up with like 17 follicles or eggs being collected. And then obviously there's a big process. They've got to fertilize and everything else, and they've got to get to certain grades before they're like usable for embryo transfers. We ended up with a total of 6 altogether. And we did our first embryo transfer. We did our first one in September 2021, and that was not successful, and that was a fresh transfer. Yeah, sorry. I've kind of messed up the time. I think the second transfer must have been, the first transfer was definitely in September, but the second egg collection, that must have been around September-ish to end of August or September, because we did it was a fresh transfer, the first one, and we did that in September. So yeah, we must have done the egg collection for the first one around June, July, and then the next one was end of August, start of September. And then they did the transfer. That one was not successful. And then we did our second embryo transfer. That was in October. That was in October, September, October-ish, 2021. So we kind of did the next one pretty much like pretty quickly as soon as we could. That was a frozen transfer. we used one fresh one, and then we had 5 frozen. Then the second transfer, we used a frozen one, and then we had 4 obviously left frozen. That one was successful, and it led to my one and only at the moment child. And yeah, that was very exciting. So we got quite lucky. The first one obviously didn't work, but the second time did. And it's about $2,700 every transfer just for the IVF clinic to do the transfer. Obviously, that doesn't include the cost of all the medications and hormones you've got to take for, the 3 to 4 weeks for the embryo transfer. So there's, a fair bit of cost involved. And then you do have to stay on all of the medications until you hit 13 weeks when you are pregnant. So it does get very expensive. But yeah, it's definitely worth it. So we ended up with our first little baby, and that was like that Pluto square the moon. Obviously, yeah, a lot of fertility stuff going on, a lot of like trauma, a lot to do with reproduction. A lot of this stuff was very public, like a lot of my family, I guess without my permission, did talk to other people about my situation. I was also pretty open about my situation too. I'm a pretty open person, so I did tell, a lot of people at work about my situation. A lot of my friends, a lot of my family knew. So it's definitely very public, very much Pluto in the in the 10th house, very public. I bonded with a lot of people at work, which is again Pluto in the 10th house, about their, I guess, own situations with IVF and their own experiences. I also had a lot of friends that had people that have gone through it as well. So I was building this network and community of people that I kind of was somewhat talking to a little bit about my journey and situation that had been through similar stuff. So it was definitely a very transformative process. And I feel like spiritually and mentally, I grew so much. Like, I just was not the same person after I got that diagnosis and went through IVF and fell pregnant, just not the same person. Sorry. So yeah, I definitely felt that Pluto transformation, right? And then I think the power and control element come through because I was really juggling a lot with work and all of the medical appointments I had to go through for IVF, pre-pregnancy and then during pregnancy. Like, there was a lot of hormones that I was on, a lot of doctor's appointments I had to go to. So a lot of blood tests, a lot of checkups. So it was really hard to navigate my full-time job as well as a pandemic and medical appointments and just all this stuff. Like, it was very traumatic. When I was pregnant, my partner, now husband, wasn't able to come to a lot of appointments with me because of the mandates and you needing to have this medication to get into hospitals and stuff, which we didn't do and didn't have. Me because of my own health reasons and being pregnant. So that made it really hard. I had to go through a lot of my appointments by myself. Again, that's that power control, like, just, I guess, the government and their rules and regulations, which is Capricorn 10th house as well, that does show leaders, authority figures, the government. So yeah, there was a lot of power and control in that way. And I kind of, did not have the support that I would have liked to have had through that period because of policies and regulations at the time. And that situation. As well as, it was really hard for me. I felt very powerless in a lot of this situation, having to go through IVF, having so many people know about my situation. Even though I was very comfortable with sharing my story, there was a lot of people that I hadn't told that knew my story as well. And it was definitely a bit of tug of war energy with how I felt about that situation, feeling powerless and very vulnerable. But again, that all led to me feeling very transformed as well. Now there's a helicopter. Can you hear that? Oh my goodness. That's really late. It's like 7:40 p.m. there. I don't know. Don't ask me. So there was definitely a lot of power and control issues as well. And throughout the pregnancy, there was a lot of issues with the doctors and stuff as well, trying to force me to have certain medications because of the said pandemic that I just wasn't having. I didn't want to risk anything, um, you know, medically happening with my baby. So there was a lot of trauma. I was told that, if I had got that certain illness, that I would lose my child, it would die. Psychologically, it was very frustrating and very traumatic for me. So there was a lot of that. And then also, the closer I got to having my child, so I gave birth to my first child in end of June 2022. So this energy was still in play, and not as strong by aspect as this, but certainly it was still very, very close, like 27, 28 degrees even then. So definitely still activated when I had my son, and during my pregnancy, like the whole time in 2022. So yeah, it was very high-risk pregnancy, very touch and go, a lot of like events where I thought I could lose my baby, or I was, at risk, medical complications, those sorts of things. So yeah, there was a lot going on. Towards the end of the pregnancy, the last 5 weeks, baby stopped growing, so we were like touch and go whether I had to have an emergency C-section and get him out because of growth restriction. There was just like a lot of stuff going on like that. So definitely that Pluto square the moon energy, a lot of emotions. It was very, very challenging. And then there was also things with even with my own mother and my family. Yeah, there was situations at my baby shower that was really upsetting. Certain family members not getting along and big events happening, leading to my mum having a bit of a breakdown and leaving my baby shower early. And then me obviously trying to talk to her about the whole situation kind of led to her mental health not being so well, and threats of ending, their own life. Those things were discussed, while I'm weeks away from having my baby. A lot of stress. I remember hysterically crying, and just feeling very stressed. And obviously that wasn't good for me, and it wasn't good for the baby. But yeah, obviously the baby shower, getting a lot of people together, just unfortunately some family members don't get along. But yeah, there was a situation, there was events that happened, things that were said that led to the end of the night not being very, very great for me. But I'm very thankful to my brother and my husband because they mitigated a lot of what happened, so that at the actual baby shower, I didn't actually know that anything had happened and that there was any drama or any situations. It wasn't until a little bit later, because there were so many people there, that I realized my mum wasn't there. And then when I got home, they actually filled me in on the full story of what happened. I just thought maybe she got home early because, she was feeling uncomfortable or something. So yeah, the actual baby shower itself, I didn't know that event had happened between my family members or anything had happened or gone down. But my brother kind of helped with some of it with my mum and had a chat with her. And yeah, my husband, really wanted me to not know until like after the baby shower, so that I could kind of enjoy that little bit of a moment that was supposed to be about me and my baby. So yeah, there was definitely that power and control there with family members and arguments and trauma, and then threats of ending someone's life. That was really hard to hear. But I think once we went past that and I had my baby, that Pluto square the moon energy wasn't as bad. I feel like once I did have my child, that energy was playing out more, but I was just so worried about the baby and losing them or something bad happening, like SIDS, stuff like that. But really, that was my whole experience, was the traumatic situation with fertility and IVF and reproduction and conflicts with, my mum at my baby shower, family members, just that drama. And that was very emotional for me. So I think that was like the main events that happened to me with that Pluto square my moon. Um, as well as obviously there were a lot of thoughts going through my head about security and money. Um, Pluto ruling over the eighth house does deal with like money and I guess your partner's money and stuff as well. So I was really worried that obviously I wouldn't have a job because the redundancy and stuff was happening and the mandates with medications. So there's a lot of thoughts in my head, like will we be able to live off just my partner's income and my now husband? What am I going to do for work? Am I going to be a stay-at-home mom? Am I going to go back to work? Or, you know, like I didn't even know through parts of it. Like I had an idea, um, but I just wasn't too sure because there's a lot of a grey area between me not taking the mandated and that being part of the contract. I wasn't too sure if I would be getting let go before the redundancy kicked in and the maternity leave, or if they would let me stay at work, pay the maternity leave, and then pay me at the redundancy. Like that was very back and forth. Like I didn't actually find out about that until three to. I think I found out I was going to be getting the redundancy about 3 weeks um, before I had him, before I had my baby. And then, yeah, I knew they were going to keep me on for a bit and paying me the maternity leave. But yeah, it was a bit, you know, I think for a 6 month period, it was like touch and go there. From the moment they kind of said that it was mandated that you needed and then me getting a bit of like a small medical exemption from my doctor because I was pregnant and my Turner syndrome, my heart condition. There was like a short period. Where I was like, oh, I don't know what's going on. So that's still that Pluto square the moon because it was like concerns about money, security, living off my husband's wage, like what we were going to kind of do for money. So there was that back and forth energy there too, which is the 10th house career. And I was also as well going through all of this. And then especially when I had my baby, I was going through big thoughts um, about whether I even wanted to go back to work. Like I knew financially that I probably had to because we kind of needed two incomes to kind of survive. But I was also very much like, I've just had this little human, like I want to be there until he goes to school. So yeah, there was a lot of that kind of energy about do I want to work? Do I want to be a stay-at-home mum? What do I want to do about my career? And then having conversations with my own mother again. This is probably where the Pluto square my moon comes in because the moon shows your mother. Um, Having conversations with my mum about this situation, and yeah, I guess she made it very clear that um, she thought that I should get the medication and that I should be going back to work in a counseling field, like I was, like doing counseling appointments for people because I studied for this at university for 5 years, and that was like my dream and my goal, what I'd worked so hard for. And she thought it was a little silly that I was kind of not wanting to pursue that career field, not wanting to follow through with mandates to stay in a job in that field. So yeah, we had some pretty big conversations about that with her being quite strong with her opinion and me being like, I don't really know what I want to do. So that did form like a smidget of tension, not too bad though. Like it was just me being like, oh, like I know that I have gone to uni and I have worked really hard to kind of get where I am and I'm still paying off my HECS debt. But yeah, I know things just shifted for me where the drive and the motivation for work just wasn't there. I kind of wanted to have my own business. I wanted to make an income working from home, or I just wanted to be a stay-at-home mum. Like things just shifted for me. So there was a huge transformation in me, as well as that's when I started falling into astrology. So that period at the end of 2019, early 2020, while I was like moving and going through like all this, health stuff, it was kind of like a dark night of the soul, spiritual awakening. I fell into astrology and I was learning astrology like there was nothing else. Like I was obsessed. 2020 was the year where I just studied, 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 studied. And I was doing free readings for people and just loved it. So Pluto ruling the eighth house. The eighth house does rule over occult practices, so things like tarot, witchcraft, astrology. So that was kind of funny that that kind of square brought that up for me as well. Don't know if it was more the Saturn return or the Pluto square moon, but that that all coincided at the same time as well. So I found that very amusing. But yeah, that's kind of like my little story. I guess the main thing is massive career changes for me, a redundancy, an ending of that career field for me in counseling because I did not go back to that field after I had my son, even now. The start of astrology for me as a bit of a business. So that was an interesting part of it. And then, yeah, the birth and IVF process. So birth of my son, IVF, that was all that Pluto's where my moon energy. So that was my little story. So I'm intrigued if anyone else has had any major Pluto aspects to their personal planets or their sun and moon, or if you've got any stories kind of similar to this, especially if you've had a Pluto square moon transit. I want to kind of hear from you. I want to know like what experiences you guys have had. But yeah, definitely fill me in and sorry, hiccup. Fill me in, comment below, tell me your stories because I love to talk to you guys about that and hear your stories. And yeah, I hope that this has given you a bit of an insight into what Pluto is, what the moon is, what the square aspect is, and also, how looking at the houses that it's occurring in, the first house, physical body, 10th house, career, reputation, legacy, and also the houses that it rules, the moon ruling the fourth house, home and family, Pluto ruling the eighth house, rebirth, sex, and also DEATH, endings, those sorts of things. So I hope that give you a little snapshot of what that all means and then how that played out for me personally in my life. So I hope you enjoyed this story time. Please, please, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I'm sending you so much love. Thank you. And I'll catch you in the next one.